When Helen Brooks opened her front door, my 11-year-old daughter was sitting on a floral couch wrapped in a stranger's blanket. Maya's lips were pale. Her hands were still shaking around a mug of hot chocolate. She looked at me and tried to smile. "I'm okay, Dad." She wasn't. 20 minutes earlier, my mother-in-law had taken Maya's burgundy parka off her shoulders and put her outside in 14-degree weather because Maya talked back after her 16-year-old cousin shoved her into a wall. My wife, Lauren, knew our daughter was outside. She stayed in the kitchen. That fact did more damage to our marriage than anything Deborah said that night. I carried Maya to my car, turned the heat all the way up, and drove her straight to urgent care. I did not confront Deborah. I did not call Lauren. Not yet. Because before anger, I needed facts. My name is Ethan Reed. For 9 years, Lauren's family treated me like the unimpressive husband who still drove an old Honda Accord and did something in logistics. What they did not know was that Redwood Logistics Group, the company paying Deborah's salary, health insurance, retirement contributions, and half her family's bills, belonged to me. Valuation, $52.4 million. They just didn't know it yet. My father, Frank Reed, worked as a commercial electrician for 35 years. He was not wealthy. He was the kind of man who came home with copper dust on his sleeves, ate dinner standing at the kitchen counter, and still checked every number on a contractor's invoice before he went to bed. He believed in work you could measure. Hours. Materials. Receipts. Promises written down. When I was 20, I was working night dispatch for a freight brokerage outside Cincinnati. Most nights were fluorescent lights, bad coffee, and drivers calling because somebody had sent them 200 miles in the wrong direction. What caught my attention were the empty return trips. Truck after truck delivered a load, then drove back with nothing because the warehouse, broker, and next shipper were all operating like separate islands. Everybody was losing money because nobody wanted to connect the pieces. I started sketching routes during slow shifts. Then warehouse capacity. Then cross-dock schedules. I spent 4 months building a plan for a small third-party logistics operation out of a rented distribution building. When I finally showed my father, he read all 41 pages. Then he circled 17 things and read. No congratulations. No speech. He just said, "You can't build a company out of answers you're hoping are true." I went back and fixed all 17. 2 weeks later, he helped me secure the first lease by putting his own credit behind part of the guarantee. On the drive home, I expected him to say he was proud of me. He kept his eyes on the highway. "Build it quiet," he said. "Let the work make the noise." That became the rule. I built Redwood Logistics Group one facility at a time. Warehousing. Cross-docking. Regional fulfillment. Backhaul coordination. Small acquisitions nobody outside the industry cared enough to notice. As Redwood grew, I hired Graham Keller. Graham was 15 years older than me, polished in every way I wasn't, and genuinely excellent at running operations. He became president and COO. He did trade interviews. He stood on conference stages. He shook hands with landlords and regional officials. People assumed Redwood was his company. Neither of us corrected them unless legally necessary. I remained founder and managing member through Reed Family Holdings. My name stayed where it mattered. Ownership documents. Loan covenants. Board resolutions. Not billboards. By 34, Redwood had 19 facilities across 5 states, 372 employees, and an independent valuation of $52.4 million. I still drove a 7-year-old Honda Accord. I owned 3 decent suits. When people asked what I did, I said, supply chain consulting. Most stopped listening immediately. That suited me. Privacy felt efficient. Controlled. Safe. For years, I thought my father had taught me how to protect what I built. I had not yet understood that silence could protect a company while slowly exposing a family. I met Lauren at a fundraiser for a neighborhood pediatric clinic. She was 31, quick-witted, impossible to impress, and the first person I had dated in years who never seemed interested in turning conversation into a resume contest. Her mother was there too. Deborah Carver. The first night, she liked me. Or at least she liked the version of me she had not evaluated yet. She asked what I did. Supply chain consulting. Her smile changed almost imperceptibly. Oh. That was the beginning. By the time Lauren and I were engaged, Deborah had developed a way of questioning my life without technically criticizing it. You're still doing the consulting thing? You ever think about getting something more permanent? Lauren always was ambitious. I assumed she'd marry someone in management. I was in management. Just not the kind printed on a business card she could show her friends. Lauren pushed back sometimes. Not enough to start wars, but enough that I noticed. Mom, Ethan does fine. Fine. That word followed me through 9 years of family dinners. I drove the Accord. I wore ordinary clothes. I never corrected anyone when Graham Keller appeared in a local business article and Deborah said, "Now there's a man who built something." I knew exactly what Graham had built. I had signed the acquisition documents. But my father's rule had become instinct. Build quiet. Let the work make the noise. Maya was born 3 years into our marriage. She had Lauren's smile and my habit of watching a room before speaking. By 11, she understood far more about Deborah's hierarchy than I wanted to admit. She knew which cousins could interrupt adults without consequences. Which grandchildren got praised first. Which families Deborah described as doing very well. And she knew her father was the man Grandma treated like he had somehow failed an exam nobody had told him he was taking. 2 weeks before Christmas, Maya started saving for a burgundy parka she had seen at a discount store. She earned the last few dollars walking our neighbor's dog and watering plants while people traveled. When she brought it home, she modeled it for me in the kitchen. You like it? Looks expensive. It wasn't. That sounds like my kind of coat. She laughed. Then she looked at herself in the dark reflection of the microwave. Grandma always says everybody dresses nice for Christmas. You dress fine. I know. A pause. Then. I just want to look like I belong there. I should have heard more in that sentence. Instead, I told myself she was 11. Kids want approval. Families are complicated. Deborah's opinion of me had never mattered enough to fight over. What I failed to understand was that Maya had been watching me absorb that disrespect for years. And children learn what a family considers acceptable by watching what the adults allow to continue. Christmas Eve at Deborah's house always ran on a schedule. Dinner at 6. Dessert at 7:30. Family photos before anyone changed out of whatever Deborah had decided counted as presentable. That year, I was late. A vendor dispute at one of our Kentucky facilities had turned into an emergency board call, and by the time I closed my laptop, Lauren and Maya had already been at Deborah's for almost 2 hours. I texted Lauren. Running behind. 20 minutes out. She sent back a thumbs up. Nothing else. 12 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Maya Reed's father? The woman introduced herself as Helen Brooks. She lived 2 houses down from Deborah. I have your daughter with me. Everything inside me stopped. What happened? She was outside by the fence. No coat. She was shaking pretty badly. I looked at the temperature on my dashboard. 14 degrees. Wind chill lower. Helen kept talking, but I was already turning off the highway. When I reached her house, my Accord was half on the curb. Maya was sitting on a floral couch under a plaid blanket, holding hot chocolate in both hands. Her burgundy parka was gone. There was a red mark along her shoulder. She looked up. I'm okay, Dad. I crouched in front of her and checked her fingers. Tell me what happened. She swallowed. Tyler got mad. Her 16-year-old cousin had lost a video game and shoved her into the wall. Maya pushed his arm away and told him not to touch her again. Deborah heard the argument. She did not punish Tyler. She looked at Maya and said, "You come into my house with that attitude. You can cool your mouth down outside." Then she took Maya's parka off, opened the back door, and put her out. Did Mom know? Maya's eyes dropped. That was my answer before she spoke. Grandma said it was only for 5 minutes. How long were you out there? I don't know. Helen answered behind me. Close to 20, best I can tell. Maya had eventually walked along the fence toward the nearest porch light. Helen saw her through the window. I stood too fast. For 1 second, I wanted to cross those 2 houses and unload every quiet thing I had swallowed for 9 years. Then Maya coughed. That decided it. My daughter needed a doctor more than Deborah needed my anger. I wrapped Maya in my coat and carried her to the car. As I buckled her in, Deborah's front door opened down the block. Lauren stepped outside. Coat on now. Hands empty. She saw me. I saw her. She started walking toward us. I closed Maya's door. Ethan. I got behind the wheel and drove. At urgent care, after the nurse confirmed Maya was stable, I finally checked my phone. 11 missed calls from Lauren. 1 text. Please let me explain. I typed 1 question. Did you know she was outside? The reply took 4 minutes. Yes. Then another message appeared. I thought Mom was bringing her back in. I stared at that sentence until the screen dimmed. Lauren had known. She had known it was 14 degrees. She had known our daughter was outside without a coat. And she had decided not to stand up. That was the moment Christmas Eve stopped being a family argument. It became evidence. Maya was discharged just after midnight. The doctor called it cold exposure with no lasting injury, but told me to monitor her through the night. By the time we got home, she was exhausted. I made grilled cheese. She ate half. Then she fell asleep upstairs wearing the navy Christmas socks Lauren had bought her that morning. I checked on her twice before I went back downstairs. My laptop was still on the kitchen table. I opened Redwood's employee system. Not because I had decided what to do. I needed something factual. Something that did not depend on Deborah's version, Lauren's explanation, or my anger. I typed one word into the employee directory. Carver. 8 names appeared. I stared at the screen. Deborah Carver. Senior Dispatch Coordinator. 11 years. Annual salary, $71,800. Full medical. Dental. 401k match. Then Monica Carver. Accounts payable. Scott Carver. Warehouse operations supervisor. Tyler's father. 2 cousins I had met at Christmas dinners. An in-law whose name I barely remembered. Another nephew working second shift at one of our distribution centers. I opened Scott's file. Performance bonus approved in November. I remembered approving that department's bonus pool. I had signed the number that helped buy Christmas presents for a family that spent 9 years treating me like I was barely established enough for Lauren. Their prescriptions. Their insurance. Their retirement contributions. Their paid leave. The stability that helped finance mortgages and braces and summer vacations. All of it came through Redwood. My company. And until that night, I had not even known most of them worked there. That was the strange part. I did not feel powerful. I felt embarrassed. I owned a company with 372 employees, and somehow an entire branch of my wife's family had built their financial lives inside it without me noticing. Then I opened Deborah's personnel file. I was expecting tenure. Performance reviews. Routine records. What I found instead was a flag. Then another one. And beneath them, a process that should have moved forward more than a year ago. It hadn't. The first complaint was 14 months old. A seasonal employee named Jasmine Cole had filed it during her second week in Deborah's department. 24 years old. Temporary hire. No prior HR history. That detail mattered to me. Most people do not file a formal complaint in their second week unless something has already pushed them past the fear of being labeled difficult. I opened the report. Jasmine described Deborah correcting her in front of other employees, calling her temporary help instead of using her name, withholding instructions, and then criticizing her for not knowing procedures she had never been taught. Dates. Times. Witnesses. Specific quotes. It was clean documentation. Not somebody venting after a bad shift. 3 months later, there was another complaint. Luis Mendoza. 27. Different employee. Same department. Same pattern. Public humiliation. Comments about people being replaceable. Deliberately vague instructions followed by criticism when the work was wrong. 2 witnesses corroborated it. I leaned back from the screen. Redwood policy was unambiguous. 2 substantiated conduct incidents within 12 months triggered a mandatory management review. Not optional. Not at the supervisor's discretion. Mandatory. I knew because I had approved that policy myself. I clicked deeper into Deborah's file. Complaint 1 had been reviewed. Complaint 2 had been reviewed. The trigger had fired automatically. Management conduct review required. Then nothing. No meeting. No performance plan. No written warning. No explanation. Just a dead end in the audit trail. I checked the timestamps. Someone had manually stopped the escalation. At 1:56 in the morning, I pulled the policy document to make sure I was remembering it correctly. I was. At 2:03, I checked whether Deborah had received some exception because of tenure. She had not. At 2:11, I checked whether either complaint had later been withdrawn. Neither had. That was when my anger changed shape. Christmas Eve had brought me into Deborah's personnel file. But Christmas Eve had not created the problem. Whatever she had done to Maya was separate from the fact that employees had already been telling Redwood, in writing, that Deborah treated people beneath her like they did not matter. And someone inside my company had decided those warnings should disappear. I looked upstairs toward Maya's room. Then back at the screen. I could not change what Deborah had done that night. But I could find out why a system I built to protect people had stopped protecting them. At 2:19 in the morning, I called Jonah Feldman. Jonah had been Redwood's HR director for 6 years. He was the kind of person who documented everything twice and still printed important emails because, according to him, memory is not evidence. I trusted him. That was why the missing review bothered me. He answered on the 4th ring. Ethan, I'm looking at a conduct escalation that stopped after 2 substantiated complaints. Silence. Senior Dispatch Coordinator, I continued. Deborah Carver. The silence changed. Not confusion. Recognition. Jonah. I know. Know what? Another pause. Then he said, I know who she is. I sat back. How? Insurance renewal. 3 years ago, we had to verify beneficial ownership on the holding company. Your name came through on the audit. And you connected Deborah to Lauren. Yes. I looked at the 2 complaint files on my screen. Did you stop the review? Yes. No excuse. No attempt to soften it. Just yes. Why? His answer came slowly. Because I thought I was protecting you. I said nothing. You built Redwood, so your personal life stayed separate. You never used your name publicly. When I saw Deborah was your mother-in-law, I assumed you didn't want a family employment issue turning into an ownership scandal. So you buried 2 complaints. I delayed escalation. You stopped it. Yes. The distinction disappeared as soon as he said it. I looked at Jasmine's name. Then Luis's. You protected me by removing protection from people who worked for me. Jonah exhaled. I know that now. How many other complaints? I don't know. That's not an answer I can use. I'll audit the department. No. He went quiet. Not yet. First, preserve everything. Original timestamps. Access logs. Notes. No edits. No cleanup. No backdated explanations. Understood. And Jonah? Yes. What happened to Maya on Christmas Eve is not the basis for Deborah's employment review. I understand. The workplace complaints existed before my daughter was ever put outside. Yes. I will not have anyone saying I fired my mother-in-law because I was angry. He was silent for a moment. Then, "What do you want me to do?" I looked at the policy again. 2 substantiated conduct complaints. Mandatory review. No discretion. The answer was almost disappointingly simple. Let the policy run exactly as written. Jonah breathed out. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I believe you." That seemed to surprise him. Then I added, "But good intentions don't get to erase consequences." I ended the call. Upstairs, Maya was sleeping. Downstairs, a process that should have started 14 months earlier had finally begun moving again. By December 26th, I had stopped thinking about Christmas Eve as a family dispute. Family disputes depend on memory. On who said what. Who was standing where. Who meant what. I wanted something harder than memory. So I called Naomi Park. Naomi had been my personal attorney for almost 5 years, mostly handling corporate structure, liability, acquisition paperwork, and the occasional problem that existed because Redwood had grown faster than I had expected. She was 44, precise to the point of irritation, and almost impossible to rush. I trusted that about her. When I told her what happened, she did not say, "That's horrible." She asked, "Was Maya medically evaluated?" "Yes." "Do you have the discharge paperwork?" "Yes." "Did the neighbor witness her outside?" "She found her." "Will she give a written statement?" "I think so." "Was there any physical contact before Maya was put outside?" Her cousin shoved her. "Visible injury?" "Red mark on her shoulder." "Photograph it before it fades." I looked toward the stairs. Maya was asleep. Naomi continued, "Do not ask anyone in Lauren's family to explain anything yet." I wasn't planning to. Good. Explanations change. Timestamps don't. That sounded like something my father would have liked. The next morning, I took Maya back to urgent care for the recommended follow-up. Dr. Alicia Grant had seen her Christmas Eve. Her notes were clinical. That helped. Patient presented following cold weather exposure without adequate outerwear. Significant shivering reported prior to arrival. Alert and oriented. No evidence of frostbite. No lasting injury identified. Continued monitoring recommended. She had also documented the red mark on Maya's shoulder. When Dr. Grant asked how it happened, Maya said, "My cousin pushed me because he lost." No coaching. No long explanation. Just that. Dr. Grant photographed the mark for the medical record with my permission. Helen Brooks agreed to write a statement. She did it by hand on yellow legal paper. 3 pages. Her handwriting was large and careful, the handwriting of someone who had spent decades teaching children how letters were supposed to look. She wrote that she had seen Maya near the fence line without a winter coat. That Maya was visibly shivering. That the temperature was below freezing. That she brought her inside immediately. That Maya repeatedly said she did not want anyone getting in trouble. That last part stayed with me. 11 years old. Cold enough that her hands hurt. Still worried about protecting the adults who had failed her. Helen ended her statement with one sentence. "I am writing this because children should not have to prove that adults knew better." Naomi called me that afternoon. "Send me everything." I did. Medical records. Photographs. Helen's statement. My call log. The texts between Lauren and me. Especially the one where I asked, "Did you know she was outside?" And Lauren answered, "Yes." Naomi did not comment on the marriage. That was another reason I trusted her. She understood which problem she was being asked to solve. Then I told her about Deborah's employment file. The 2 complaints. The stalled mandatory review. Jonah's admission. Naomi became very quiet. Has Jonah preserved the original audit trail? Yes. Did you instruct him to make changes? No. I told him to preserve everything and let policy run. Good. She asked for copies of the original complaints. Jasmine Cole. Luis Mendoza. The policy section requiring mandatory review. The system timestamps. The access logs showing who touched the files. And Jonah's written explanation. I had not asked Jonah for one yet. Naomi did. Not as a confession. As preservation. 2 days later, he sent a 4-page statement. He explained how he had discovered my ownership through the insurance audit. How he connected Deborah to Lauren. How he made the decision to stop escalation because he believed he was shielding me from a conflict between Redwood and my wife's family. He wrote one sentence that mattered more than the rest. No instruction, request, suggestion, or pressure to halt the review came from Ethan Reed. The decision was mine alone. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Naomi. On January 3rd, she came to my house carrying a black accordion file. Maya was upstairs on a video call with a friend. Lauren was staying with her sister. Naomi set the file on my kitchen table. I labeled them. Of course you did. She almost smiled. Then she opened it. Exhibit A, Incident Report. The non-emergency incident record documenting the cold exposure and family circumstances. Exhibit B, Medical Records. Dr. Grant's Christmas Eve notes and follow-up. Exhibit C, Helen Brooks. 3 handwritten pages. Exhibit D, photograph of Maya's shoulder. I looked away for a second. Naomi noticed. She did not stop. Exhibit E, call and message timestamps, including Lauren's admission. Exhibits F and G, prior workplace complaints against Deborah Carver. Jasmine. Luis. Exhibit H, Redwood Conduct Policy. Mandatory review. Exhibit I, System Audit Logs. The process firing. Then stopping. Exhibit J, Jonah Feldman's written statement. For pages. And Exhibit K. She slid the final document toward me. My formal written recusal from any employment decision involving Deborah. I read it. It stated that I had a personal family relationship with the employee and would have no role in findings, recommendations, appeals, or termination decisions. I signed it. Naomi watched me put the pen down. Now, she said, tell me what you actually want. I don't want to sue Deborah. I know. I don't want to threaten Lauren. I know. I don't want Redwood used like a weapon. I know. I looked at the file between us. What I want is for nobody to be able to call this a misunderstanding 6 months from now. Naomi nodded. That's what documentation is for. I ran my thumb along the edge of Exhibit C. Helen's statement. What if Deborah says Maya exaggerated? Then there are medical notes. What if Tyler says she started it? There is still no version of that dispute where an 11-year-old being placed outside without a coat becomes appropriate. What if Lauren changes what she says? Naomi tapped Exhibit E. She already said it. I sat back. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt something inside me unclench. Not relief. Clarity. I had spent 9 years allowing Deborah's family to define me according to whatever version of me they preferred. Quiet husband. Unambitious. Not quite enough. Christmas Eve had taught me the problem with letting people write reality unchallenged. Eventually, somebody starts believing there will never be a record saying otherwise. I looked at the black file. 11 exhibits. No threats. No shouting. No revenge. Just a sequence of things that had happened, preserved carefully enough that nobody could make them unhappen later. The ownership secret did not come out because I announced it. It came out because a document went to the wrong person. On the second Thursday in January, Monica Carver opened her work queue in Redwood's accounts payable system and found an external conduct review notice that had been routed to her by mistake. It should have gone to compliance. Instead, it landed in front of Deborah's daughter. According to the access log Naomi later showed me, Monica kept the file open for 18 minutes. Most of it would have meant nothing to her. Policy codes. Review status. Department identifiers. A redacted incident reference. Then, at the bottom, there was a line most employees never saw. Ultimate owner approval, e-read. Monica apparently stared at that for a while. Then she opened the corporate reference attachment linked beside it. That document was not secret. It was simply buried inside internal compliance material that ordinary employees had no reason to read. At the top, Redwood Logistics Group. Parent entity, Reed Family Holdings, LLC. Managing member, Ethan James Reed. Monica called Deborah. I know that because Lauren told me later. Mom, Monica said, what's Ethan's full name? Deborah answered immediately. Ethan James Reed. Then silence. Monica read the screen again. Mom, I think Ethan owns Redwood. Deborah laughed. Not because it was funny. Because some information is so incompatible with the story you have been telling yourself that your first reaction is rejection. That's ridiculous. Monica sent her the screenshot. Deborah stopped laughing. Lauren called me 4 minutes later. I was sitting in the Accord outside a hardware store. Her name appeared on the dashboard. I almost let it ring out. Then I answered. Do you own Redwood? No hello. No build-up. Just the question. Yes. Silence. I could hear her breathing. All of it. Controlling ownership. How much? That's not really the important. Ethan. I looked through the windshield. Redwood was independently valued at $52.4 million last year. Another silence. Longer this time. And my mother works there. Yes. Monica works there. Yes. Scott. Yes. How long have you known? That they worked there? Yes. Since Christmas Eve. She went quiet again. Then. No. How long have you owned it? Before I met you. I heard her inhale sharply. Before we were married? Yes. Before Maya? Yes. Jesus Christ. I let her sit with it. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. Why didn't you tell me? That's not a phone conversation. You let my mother spend 9 years talking to you like you were barely employed. I know. You let me defend you. I know. And the whole time you owned the company paying her salary? Yes. Her voice changed. Not louder. Wounded. Was I supposed to pass some test? That landed harder than anything Deborah had ever said to me. No. Then what was this? I did not have a clean answer. Not yet. Lauren spoke again. Does Mom know you found the complaints? I don't know what Monica showed her. Are you firing her? No. That's not what she thinks. I recused myself. Silence. The review is based on complaints that existed before Christmas. So you're doing nothing? I'm letting the process run. She laughed once, without humor. Of course you are. Then the call ended. For years, I had believed privacy kept money from changing people. But sitting in that parking lot, I understood the other side of it. When people discover a truth that large all at once, they do not only question the secret. They start questioning every year that came before it. And Lauren had 9 of them to reconsider. Lauren came home that Sunday afternoon. Maya was at a friend's house. I had arranged it that way deliberately. Some conversations should never happen with a child listening from upstairs. Lauren sat across from me at the kitchen table. For almost a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she said, 52.4 million. That was last year's valuation. She looked at me like the correction itself irritated her. You know that isn't the point. I know. Why didn't you tell me? I had spent years answering that question in my own head. My father. Privacy. Asset protection. People changing when they knew what you had. None of those explanations sounded as clean when I had to say them to my wife. My father taught me to build quietly. That explains not telling my mother. Yes. It does not explain not telling me. She was right. I looked at my hands. When redwood started becoming worth real money, I got protective of it. Then I got protective of knowing who people were before they knew what I had. Lauren's expression changed. So I was a test. No. You just described a test. I started to answer. Stopped. Then said, at some point, privacy became a test you never agreed to take. That was the first honest version of it. Lauren looked away. I spent 9 years defending you to Mom. I know. I told her she didn't understand you. She didn't. Neither did I. I had no defense for that. We sat in silence. Then I asked the question that mattered more than Redwood. Tell me exactly what happened with Maya. Lauren's eyes filled immediately. She did not try to hide it. Mom opened the back door. You saw her? Yes. With Maya? Yes. Without the coat? Yes. Each answer landed separately. Lauren pressed both palms against the table. Mom said Maya needed 5 minutes. I knew it was too cold. Then why didn't you get up? Her face collapsed. I don't know. I said nothing. No, that's not true. She wiped her eyes. I do know. I waited. I've spent my whole life letting Mom decide when something is serious and when I'm overreacting. She said Maya needed to cool off, and for maybe 10 seconds I knew it was wrong. 10 seconds. Ethan, listen. I knew it was wrong before I decided not to get up. That sentence ended whatever argument I might have made. She continued. I told myself Mom would bring her back in. Then I waited. Then I realized too much time had passed. And Maya was gone. Yes. Lauren cried quietly. I should have stood up. Yes. I did not tell her it was okay. It wasn't. She looked at me. Do you still want this marriage? I thought about saying yes. I thought about saying no. Both answers felt dishonest. I want to know whether there's still a marriage here worth rebuilding. She nodded slowly. That's fair. The following week, we started therapy with Dr. Rebecca Monroe. Her first rule was simple. The goal was not to save our marriage. The goal was to find out whether trust could be rebuilt without either of us pretending the rupture had been smaller than it was. Redwood could survive a hidden ownership reveal. My marriage had a harder question in front of it. Money could explain what I had concealed. It could not excuse what Lauren had failed to do. And neither of us was getting out of that room by blaming Deborah for everything. Deborah's formal review began on January 9th. I had already signed the recusal. No meetings. No private calls. No owner input. The committee received exactly what policy required. Jasmine Cole's complaint. Luis Mendoza's complaint. The original timestamps. The halted escalation. Jonah Feldman's written explanation. And Deborah's employment record. Nothing about my anger. Nothing about Christmas dinner. Nothing about the fact that she had spent 9 years treating me like I was barely good enough for her daughter. I wanted the decision to survive even if my name disappeared from the story entirely. The committee met 5 days later. Their recommendation was termination. Deborah was notified the next morning. She called me that night. I watched her name light up my phone. Then I let it go to voicemail. Her message lasted 47 seconds. Ethan, I think there's been a misunderstanding. About work. About Christmas. About a lot of things. Please call me. I listened once. Then I saved it and forwarded it to Naomi. I did not respond. Deborah appealed. The appeal went to a separate panel. I remained recused. They reviewed the same record and upheld the decision. Her final day at Redwood was February 16th. I did not choose the date. I did not walk into her office. I did not say, "You're fired." The system did something much quieter. It finally completed the process it should have completed more than a year earlier. That mattered to me. Because the difference between revenge and accountability is not whether someone suffers consequences. It is whether the consequence still makes sense when your anger is removed from the evidence. Scott Carver's contract came up for renewal in March. His record was clean. No complaints. No disciplinary history. Strong performance reviews. The renewal was approved. Monica kept her job too. So did every other Carver whose file gave Redwood no legitimate reason to remove them. 3 weeks after Deborah's appeal failed, Monica called me. Her voice was tight. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Did you know all of us worked for you before Christmas?" "No." "All of us." I knew Deborah worked somewhere in logistics. I had no idea it was Redwood. Silence. "Did you do this to hurt our family?" I looked out my office window. "No." "Then why does it feel like everything changed the second you found out?" "Because I stopped ignoring information I should have known." "That sounds convenient." "Scott still works here." She went quiet. "So do you," I added. "So do the others with clean records. You could fire us. I could also violate policy. I'm not doing either." Her breathing softened slightly. "What about Mom?" "Your mother had 2 documented complaints before Christmas Eve. The review should have happened long before Maya was put outside." Monica did not answer. A week later, Deborah sent me a message asking to see Maya. I did not decide for my daughter. I replied once. "When Maya is ready to decide what relationship she wants with you, I'll listen to her. Until then, do not contact her directly." That was the boundary. Not punishment. Not leverage. Maya was not a bargaining chip in a fight between adults. And Redwood was not a weapon I could swing at an entire family because one person had earned consequences. Quiet justice only works when it stays precise. By June, Maya had a new parka. Navy blue. She picked it herself. I did not ask why she did not choose burgundy again. Some choices are not about preference. Sometimes they are about taking ownership back. She had also been seeing Dr. Samuel Cho for almost 5 months. He told me she was doing well. Then added the sentence therapists seem trained to use when doing well is not the same thing as being finished. Keep watching. I was. One Tuesday night, Maya and I were eating tacos at the kitchen counter when she asked, "Dad, are we rich?" I almost laughed. Not because the question was funny. Because she asked it like she was asking whether we had milk. "We have more than enough." "How much?" "Enough that you don't need to worry about it." She chewed for a moment. "Then why does Grandma think you don't have anything?" That one was harder. So I told her about Frank. About the warehouse. About Redwood. About the first loan. And about the sentence my father had given me before I really understood money. Build it quiet. Let the work make the noise. Maya listened. Then she asked, "So you kept Redwood secret because Grandpa told you to?" "Partly." "From Grandma?" "Yes." "From Mom?" I paused. "Yes." "From me?" That hurt. I wasn't trying to hide you from anything. She looked directly at me. But I'm not a secret, Dad. I stopped breathing for a second. She was not accusing me. That made it worse. She was simply showing me the distinction I had missed for years. Silence can be armor. It can keep greed outside. It can keep strangers from deciding who you are based on what you own. But if you build the walls high enough, eventually the people you love are standing behind them too. Maya went back to her taco. I sat there realizing my father had taught me how to protect a business. My daughter was teaching me how not to disappear inside it. My father called in April. He did not mention Redwood. He asked one question. How's Maya? She's better. A pause. I heard what happened. Family news traveled eventually. I think I handled it, I said. You did. I looked at the Redwood badge Maya had left on the kitchen counter. Dad, I think I misunderstood what you taught me. What part? Build quiet. He waited. I hid too much. Lauren, Maya, half my life. Frank exhaled. Quiet never meant invisible, Ethan. I said nothing. It meant don't build your identity out of applause. That's different from making the people you love guess who you are. That landed. I may have broken some things. Maybe. Another pause. Some things need breaking before you notice they were already carrying the wrong weight. Then he asked Maya's new coat color. Because that was my father. One sentence that rearranged your life. Then back to practical things. There is a Redwood badge hanging from the rearview mirror of my Accord now. Maya found it in a kitchen drawer in March. She turned it over in her hands and read the small print beneath the logo. Ethan Reed, founder. That's really you? Yeah. She nodded once, walked outside, and hung it from the mirror. No speech. No permission asked. Just there. I still drive the same 7-year-old Accord. The air conditioner rattles whenever I turn left. Maya's fingerprints are still on the back window from last summer. Redwood is still worth more money than most people will ever see. Lauren and I are still in therapy. I still don't know exactly what our marriage will look like a year from now. But I know this. I spent half my life believing strength meant nobody needed to know what I had built. Maya taught me something harder. The people you love should never have to disappear inside your silence just to keep you safe. My father taught me to build quietly. My daughter taught me that quiet is not the same thing as invisible. So I still build quietly. I just don't hide the man who built it anymore.